7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, and welcome to the Marketing Essentials podcast. Our unique team helps small businesses grow by providing essential marketing expertise.
Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Essentials podcast. My name is Bill Parmentier of WPRI Photography.
I'm Justin of Justin Kerr Design.
And I'm Alicia with Custom Marketing Solutions.
And together we make up
The Marketing
Essentials team.
So today we're talking about, I think we've decided we're going to call this hashtag fail. Talk about marketing
Actually,
disasters.
hashtag marketing fail.
Hashtag marketing fail. We wanted to take some time today and just talk about how businesses can get their marketing done wrong.
Right. We talk a lot about what you can do to succeed with your marketing.
Yes.
However, there's lots of valuable lessons to be learned by what other people have done and done very, very wrong.
We've said this many times before. You can learn from what other people's failures are to avoid your own, you know? So
I think the saying goes that smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
So hopefully we have some wise listeners.
I hope so.
To the podcast that can learn from these mistakes that we've come across.
So I think I'll start it off here. So we've before this podcast started, we each picked two marketing fails, if you will, and some of them are going to probably make you cringe a little bit, or a lot, and that's for a reason, because these are things that we really need to think about before you go and do your marketing.
All
So
right,
the first,
kick us off.
I'm going to kick us off. I'm going to kick us off. Hang on one second. Just got to find it now. Yes. Sometimes business owners can become a little overconfident in their product. And sometimes that overconfidence can get you in a little bit of trouble. Going back to 2006, so not too long ago, 12 years ago. In my lifetime, it's not a long time. Alicia's over here laughing. But there was a company, and the company still exists to the best of my knowledge, called LifeLock. And the CEO's name was Todd Davis. Well, Todd believed so much in his company that he thought, you know what, I'm so sure that the product that I have is going to help people not have their identity stolen, that he had the bright idea of taking his social security number and plastering it all over all of their advertising materials, commercials, vans, everything. Anybody want to guess what the outcome of that was?
He got hacked.
Not once, not twice.
3 times?
No. How about 13 times he had his identity stolen? 13 times.
Wow.
Can you say, oops?
Can you say witness protection program?
Yeah, you would think. It's like, what would make you think that? I get that he believed in his product.
Right.
But if you don't have a 100% guarantee, especially when you're playing around with something like your own identity that can be stolen possibly, I don't know. I think that's gutsy.
You bring up a good point. It's like, all right, so if you're confident that your product or service is so good that you'd be willing to put your own social security number out there, why not test that quietly?
Yeah, and see if it works.
And see if it actually works before you put it out there publicly.
Yeah, you would think they would do some sort of testing ahead of time, like market testing or...
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Especially when you're a big company like that.
What do you do? Well, then again, I guess what do? Do you call somebody up and go on the black market and go, hey, can you see if you can try to hack my...
I'm not a programmer or coder or not a cryptologist or anything like that, but I would assume that there is some way to test that.
Sure, I would think so.
And say, okay, is this thing really as bulletproof as we think? And if it's not, don't put the claim out there. Sell it on its good points and say, hey, we're confident in this project, but to go out there and say, we believe this thing is so bulletproof, we're willing to put our social security number out there, it's just foolish. I mean, you didn't test it, or maybe they did and they didn't test it well enough, but you're really taking a huge risk. And it's like you said, this is something important like your identity, right?
Yeah.
This is not a taste test between two soft drinks.
No.
This is your identity.
Well, here's the sad part about it. Think about the other unfortunate part of that. He's proved that his product doesn't work the way he's saying it's going to work. And to boot, LifeLock was fined $12 million
By who?
for deceptive advertising by the Federal Trade Commission.
Ouch.
Because he basically proved my product doesn't work.
Oh.
So that's an expensive fail.
It would be interesting to find out what they've done in the interim. Like have they really shored up their product to where it now is secure and it is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
I got to believe there's a limit to what you can do, because as fast as these people that are stealing identities are getting through, as soon as you put up another wall, they figure a way around it. So
Right. And my understanding, I've never used the product, but my understanding was that it was basically a system set up to alert you
Yeah.
if there was suspicious activity, or if you did get your identity stolen, there were some processes in place that could help you recover from that. But it didn't make you bulletproof.
no, I think a lot of them. I don't know if it was LifeLock that was one of them, but they'd offer you like $1 million in protection if your identity gets stolen through their program. So anyway, that's marketing fail number one.
Yeah.
All right.
let's go to-
Lesson learned.
Lesson
Don't
learned.
do something unless you can back it up.
Absolutely.
That's
Justin,
right.
number two.
Oh, okay. Number two. Well, this goes back to, this is a branding one for me. This goes back to 2010. And it was when Gap decided to introduce a new logo. So Gap had their iconic, blue square with a very thin and tall lettering for a long, long time. They decided that they wanted to appeal to a different market. And they introduced their new logo, and it lasted all of 2 days.
Which probably took them how long to develop a new logo?
Oh, I'm sure it was months, and it cost them millions of dollars,
Yep.
to work with a branding agency to do this. So they pulled it after 2 days because there was such a backlash from their audience, from the people that bought Gap products. And they just didn't understand their target audience, right? So the loyal Gap customers, they shopped at Gap because they just wanted the basics, good basic clothing. And Gap thought, no, we want to, shift towards trendy. And their base was like, no, we're not into trends. We want...
That's why we come here in the first place.
Right, that's why we come to the Gap, because we don't follow the trends, right? So they just completely misunderstood their target audience. And... they had to spend all this money, and then they had to pull the logo after 2 days. And, when you roll something out like that, you're ready to roll it out across the board. So you're ready to roll it out in print and on social media, and you're labeling and signage. So I have no idea how far they had to pull back.
How many people lost their job? Who got fired over that one?
And the question begs
couldn't
itself
tell you.
again: what happened to focus groups? Did they not roll out some of this new branding to a group of loyal customers and say, "What do you think?"
Well,
I don't know.
the lesson here is that you need to stay in touch with who is purchasing your product. And you have to know them well enough to know, and this goes to personas, to say, look, we understand our customer base. They're these kind of people that have these kind of habits, and we're going to market to them because our product fits their lifestyle and it fits their habits. Now, if Gap wanted to, appeal more to trends, they might have been better off doing what a lot of companies do and develop a sub-brand.
Spin-off or something like that,
and say, okay, this
Yeah, that makes
sub-brand
sense.
is going to market. I mean, Victoria's Secrets did that, right? Victoria's Secret, sorry.
Pink. Whatever that
Pink,
was, yeah.
right.
Nothing's really pink. It's just the name.
Yeah,
Right.
just the name, yeah.
Marketing to, teen girls and adolescent girls.
Yeah.
Right? So they didn't try to incorporate that demographic into their main store. They did a sub-brand.
Yeah.
And I mean, car manufacturers do this all the time, Lexus and Toyota, right? Infiniti and Honda, right? It's the same company.
Yeah, like I said, it was just
they're branded and marketed to two different demographics.
Again, just a lack of, knowing what your customers want.
Right.
Right. So just because there's market opportunity doesn't mean your company has to jump on it
Exactly.
with your current, branding in your current company. If anything, if you're a big brand, open a second company.
Yeah, and,
Right.
and the worst thing that could have happened was that had gone forward, and people had already started to realize, look, that doesn't fit with what you're selling.
Right.
I guess the question I would have had would be, was the product changed at the same time? Probably not. They probably had the same product, thinking we're just going to rebrand.
And I have issues just even with the design. They went from a very distinctive logo that
To a
people are
bland
familiar
one.
with to one that was just very generic. I mean, and
It's pretty bad.
I can't see from here. But
well, I mean, we'll post this up in the show notes, but it's basically a very generic sans serif with a blue square off to the upper right hand corner.
Bland.
It's very generic, and I've seen this trend happen a lot in the last few years, where a lot of major brands have stripped away a lot of the personality of their logo and gone very generic.
yeah,
I think because like simple is kind of a new fresh look, but simple can easily be, it can come across as cheap or generic.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
too like,
there's a big difference between that simple and like the generic beer. The cans.
When I was a kid, there was
they
a
had one.
generic branding movement, and I remember going into the grocery store
And just buying
with my
beer.
grandmother and seeing all of these white
Yep.
packages with just black lettering that said cereal
Yep.
or beer.
I remember that too.
Or whatever it was, and that lasted all of like maybe 6 months.
Yep.
is that what made you want to go into branding and design consulting, Justin?
He's still scarred
must
from
change
that
the
incident.
world.
That may have been the spark for me. Yeah.
Okay, number 3.
All right.
Alicia, what do you got?
So my example is actually a commercial that Audi aired, and it aired in the Chinese market, or it was a Chinese wedding commercial. So I'm not sure where this aired because I don't recall seeing it. But the study or the article written up on it reads that a mother-in-law walks in to the altar and starts checking out her soon-to-be daughter-in-law that's marrying her son. And she pinches, so the mother-in-law proceeds to pinch this bride's lips, pull on her ears, look at her teeth and tongue before nodding in approval. And the tagline for Audi, which is the car, the luxury vehicle, reads, "An important decision must be made carefully." So essentially, the commercial is this woman checking out her soon-to-be daughter-in-law like she's an object.
Oh, how'd
Now,
that
when
go?
did that come out?
I'm going to have to find out the date, but I'm assuming if it was any time in the last 30 years, it's still not
Probably
okay.
not a good idea.
Yeah. Well, wow. There's so many things wrong with that.
Yes.
Well, sometimes people, I don't understand how companies can go down that type of road.
Right.
Think about especially if it's something that's trending in that time frame. Like right now, we got the Me Too movement. We got,
Women,
you wouldn't dare do something like that. And it's like, what are you thinking? What
Right.
part of that made you think that was going to do well?
So I guess,
Oops,
what
sorry, I'm getting away from the mic.
what was happening here was they were like, oh, this is funny. And, it kind of like brings home the point that, yeah, you should test drive a car and you should look at the features and you should compare it to others before you buy. But why make the argument with like objectifying and judging a human and a woman who's going to be getting married? Like, it's just like something went very wrong there and nobody in the room had the...
I'm wondering if that's a cultural thing.
I'm wondering if there was any women in the room when they were reviewing this ad.
Well, this is a Japanese firm that did this,
No,
I'm
this is
not
Audi.
sure. So it's Audi.
but
German.
but it happened in Japan.
It was a Chinese wedding commercial.
wait,
Chinese.
Is Audi,
Chinese.
Is Audi Japanese or German?
German, I think.
I think Audi is German, yeah.
But I mean, think about the target market they went to, though.
Well, it would have been the American market.
Well, no, she said China.
Oh,
Well,
this is in
it's,
China?
it's just titled Chinese wedding commercial. So I'll do some more
okay.
research.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we're misunderstanding this a little bit.
However, it did backlash no matter where it
Sure.
aired.
Regardless, it was not a good decision.
And so the commercial was pulled, and the takeaway is, funny. Funny is good. Funny can be great in marketing, and it can make people chuckle. It can make you more memorable. However, there's a line when you're dealing with comedy and you're dealing with things that make people laugh because it can be, the cutesy kind of humor. It can be a little racy or a little outside the box. But the bottom line is, if you could look at something and say, this could be considered racist,
Maybe you shouldn't
or
do
this
it,
could
yeah.
be considered, downplaying like gender rights or anything in today's culture, that when we're focused on so much equality today, and we should be, and if there's any kind of maybe or anybody in the room should speak up and say, let's not
do this, yeah.
this is not a good thing. And don't sacrifice your values, even if you you're trying to get a laugh out of people, your company shouldn't sacrifice their values just to get a laugh.
It's funny because some companies can be funny. I ran across, this is a little off topic, but the whole Twitter thing with Wendy's. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
This Wendy's roast me thing where people come up and they'll do hashtag, Wendy's roast me, whatever. And then the actual corporate Wendy's will come back and roast something about that person, what they did.
Yeah, or the company.
Or the company,
Yeah.
and it's hilarious.
Like the peanuts is like,
the
okay,
worst part of trail mix.
Yeah, congratulations on being the worst part of trail mix.
So,
Like, it's cute.
Mr. Peanut, that company said Wendy's roast me, and Wendy's came back and said, congratulations on being the worst part of trail mix. So sometimes it can be funny.
So what's Wendy's promoting?
Just
It's just a trending kind of thing.
yeah.
Okay.
It's not really. It's just more to keep them out there. People are thinking
Just
Wendy's
to keep their name
out. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway,
It's cute, but
it's cute, yeah.
it kind of brings home the point that they need to be careful, and they do have one tweet that went a little wrong. I saw it out there in marketing.
they do
fail
straddle
blogs.
that line quite often.
Right, and you do have to be careful that you're not offending people,
Sure.
that you're making people laugh with your comedy.
See, I'm a big fan of snark. Okay?
Yeah.
But when I think of Wendy's, I don't think of that as being part of their brand. I think of Wendy's and I think of, quality product, wholesome, old-fashioned. I mean, my God, old-fashioned hamburgers is like part of their
I think
brand.
I think it started by accident.
I think part of it was when Dave Thomas passed away and his daughter took over the company.
Okay.
She kind of took it in a slightly different direction. So they kind of discounted a lot of those old-fashioned values and came back to
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to fit
No,
their personality. I mean, if
call it a pivot, I guess.
Okay.
We should say. I don't know. But
I
it's still,
feel like it may have started by accident with
Oh, yeah?
them making fun of someone on Twitter, and then it just kind of snowballed,
Yeah.
and it became like a hashtag. I don't know, but I could be wrong.
Anyway, so it was,
I think if you're gonna make fun of something, hedge your bet and make it self-deprecating humor. Make fun of yourself and allow other people to laugh with you. But when you start picking on other people,
well, no, they didn't come after anybody particular. These people are actually asking to be roasted by Wendy's.
Yeah.
yeah, okay, but still,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah,
that's
it's a tight line.
That's a very dangerous position.
Admittedly,
to take.
it's a tight line to walk, but they're doing it for the most part. They're doing it okay.
I give Wendy's props on this one.
Yeah,
I
I do
like
too.
it personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's very snarky.
I mean, like I said, I like snark. It just doesn't seem to fit Wendy's.
well, if you could suspend that, go back and look at some of them. They're actually pretty funny.
All right.
Yeah. Wendy's
Anyway.
on Twitter has its own life now.
Speaking of
Okay.
speaking of doing things
On
too
Twitter.
quickly and too fast on Twitter without actually thinking them out.
Oh, okay. This is number 4. What have you got?
This is my story. So this goes back to 2014. So I don't know how many. You guys remember the Ray Rice incident?
Yes.
The whole abuse incident.
An NFL player.
Yeah.
I think he knocked his girlfriend out in an elevator, and
Yeah.
it was on tape.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he tried to play it off like it was nothing.
Oh my gosh.
And at that time, one of the things that came up on Twitter was hashtag why I stayed and hashtag why I left.
And so where did these hashtags come from?
Basically, it was supposed to shed a light on abuse.
Okay.
And women would get on there and say, hashtag why I stayed. This is why I stayed in this abusive relationship, even though I probably shouldn't have.
Okay.
Or hashtag why I left. I left because I was in this type of abuse.
So a really good awareness.
Yeah,
campaign.
it was a good idea. But a company decided, without reading too far into the hashtag, I can only assume they must have just
Saw it trending.
Yeah, they saw it as a
Yeah.
trending hashtag and went, ooh, let's jump on that without actually finding out what the hashtag, trash tag, good Bill, the hashtag was. In this case,
You should copyright that. That could be a
Trash
thing.
tag.
Trash tag, yeah.
copyright trash tag, you heard it here first. And I actually like this company. I happen to like DiGiorno Pizza. They're cheap frozen pizza, but it's it works. Anyway,
It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
it's DiGiorno.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know
they've
that.
got
I know
a
the
great tagline.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't thinking, and they went out on Twitter and said, hashtag why I stayed. You had pizza. Ouch. And there was a collective groan. It's so they didn't realize when they did that trending tag was for abuse awareness. And
Is there any good way to hitch your marketing to an issue like domestic abuse?
But in this case, they didn't even
Unless
know
you're
it was.
donating and raising awareness, not really.
In this case, they didn't even know that they'd hitched their wagon to that. They just hitched it to a
Right.
hashtag.
So
And
if you
here's
go
a couple
on
of-
Twitter, what happens is the hashtags are trending on the side.
Yeah.
and they just probably saw this hashtag and they're like, oh, let me just throw this in and use it. And somebody,
Total lack of research.
yeah. So some Twitter manager definitely lost their job.
Yeah, they actually tried to save it, save their face, which kind of made things worse, and they ended up deleting it. But it said their tweet right after they realized what they'd done: 1 million apologies. Did not read what the hashtag was about before posting.
Oh, yeah, that didn't
It's
help.
like adding gasoline on the fire at that
Didn't
point.
help.
So
And I get it because Twitter moves quick, and you have this social media manager, and they were probably just like, "Oh, throw this hashtag in there."
yep, need to get this
And
done. Let's get it over with. Let's
Yeah,
pretend it's over and move on. You know?
That is cringeworthy, though, when you realize. And here's the thing: you can delete it and you can apologize, but it's been screenshotted, it's been shared,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
been
yeah.
saved. Once put out on digital media, always and forever.
Well, it's like I tell my kids:
available.
if you're going to play around on Facebook or Instagram, what you put out there, even Snapchat, people could still screenshot it. So once it's out there, there ain't no taking it back once you put it on the internet. So
So I guess the lesson learned here is any like type of hashtags you use or any type
research
of
from ahead.
any type of movement that you're getting involved in, just make sure you know the bottom line and the facts and
Yeah.
Yeah, as a business, you have to take
your
responsibility.
research.
Yeah, exactly.
and be willing to issue a very sincere apology.
Hopefully, it
Yeah.
doesn't get to that if you do your research right.
Yes. Yeah.
Number 5, Justin.
Number 5. All right, I'm going to go local.
Come on, local. Oh, I know which one this one is. We talked about this.
So this goes back to 2016, and this is the Cooler and Warmer
Rhode Island.
tourism campaign for the state of Rhode Island.
Now, why this is a local campaign, I do have to mention that this one did make national marketing
yeah.
list of fails.
Well, see, now-
we made the
Yes.
list,
Now,
guys.
the interesting part of it, for those of us who lived in Rhode Island all our lives, one of the most beloved campaigns was the biggest little state in the union campaign. You
Yep.
know,
Which I think was great.
it was great. As a matter of fact, my grandmother bought us T-shirts that had that
That is
logo on
so
it.
cute.
And it was a great campaign. And
Biggest
then-
little state, and they come up with cooler.
Cooler, warmer. Now, can I, before you explain this whole thing?
Yeah.
Can I mention when I first heard that?
Okay.
I'm going back to, I don't know if you remember the McDonald's campaigns. They used to have
Yeah,
a
the
thing called
McDLT.
DLT. One side was cool, one side was warm.
And you put them together,
Yep.
which was another marketing fail
yeah.
for McDonald's.
Because I don't remember it.
Oh, I used to love the
It was-
McDLTs. They were
It was
good.
mid 80s, and they were just trying to come up with some new gimmick. And so they decided that they were going to create this burger that they had in a
Styrofoam package.
styrofoam package, which of course those eventually got outlawed too. But it came in 2 halves. So the hamburger patty and the bun and that stuff was in one side, and then the
Top
top
part of the
bun
bun, yeah.
with lettuce and tomato and all the stuff that you would normally chill stayed on the other. And the deal was that you would put them together just before you ate them, rather than them coming together and sitting somewhere
where the salad
and
would
allowing
wilt
like
and-
the tomato to get warm
Yeah,
and all that
okay.
stuff.
It was a good idea. It was just not well thought out.
I mean, it kind of failed.
Yeah. No, exactly.
People did not get excited about it. They're like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
So yeah, cooler and warmer. That was the first thing that came to my mind too when I heard it. And here's the thing there's so many things about this one that I think were just wrong. One
They missed
is
the mark,
the state went outside to a New York marketing agency to come up with this. Now, if you've been in Rhode Island more than 15 minutes, you know that Rhode Islanders are fiercely provincial and fiercely loyal to being Rhode Islanders.
Yeah.
Now, you take a campaign that's supposed to promote the state, and you go elsewhere to have it done. And you go to New York? Really?
Well, did you also remember the commercial?
Yes.
The commercial had video in it that wasn't even Rhode Island.
It was
Right.
Sweden.
Because
It was Sweden.
and again, this is not this is going to someone who doesn't understand your market, right? Who doesn't understand the culture of your state. You're marketing the culture of Rhode Island to outside to say, hey, come to Rhode Island because X, right? But you're going outside of Rhode Island to ask somebody, well, why would someone come into Rhode Island? It's just
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I guess the explanation that I heard was that this was the same tourism company or agency that helped brand the I Love New York shirts and stuff like that.
Well,
I
that's
believe-
fine, but
Yeah, it was the agency that was founded by Milton Glaser, who did the original I Love New York logo that you see everywhere.
Right. That's all good and dandy, but he
What
ain't
does
a
that
Rhode
have to
Islander.
do with
Yeah.
Rhode Island, right?
Yeah.
Somebody had the argument. It lasted like 2 days after they announced it, and everybody was up in arms about it. And the argument was like, bring back the old,
Right.
biggest little state in the
like
union.
you said, the original was Biggest Little State, and that was replaced by Discover Beautiful Rhode Island,
again.
which is still
okay.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Better
Right?
than cooler, warmer.
Cooler and warmer. I mean,
What does it mean?
well, see, that's the thing. If you have to explain it to somebody,
It's not a good.
you've already lost, right?
Yeah.
So the governor and the tourism council spent a ton of time trying to explain this and rationalize it, and thankfully they eventually gave up. And of course, last year they came out with the new tourism campaign, and it was Rhode Island Fun Size, which I think is awesome.
That's
Right?
cute.
I'm not a
It's
fan of that one
cute.
either.
I mean, it's
It's better than cooler warmer.
it's
I'll give you
better
that.
than Cooler and
Anything is
Warmer.
better
I don't think it's as strong as the Biggest Little State.
What was that Fall
But-
River one? We can go back to.
Oh, yes, we did hear today that Fall River, which is a town kind of bordering Rhode Island. It's narrow by. And their tagline was, for their city, was, we'll try.
We'll try. Yeah. So
We'll try.
Wow,
What do
that
you-
is just ooh.
It's like phoning it in, man. It's just,
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm
So-
sorry. I didn't want to go too far off the course here, but
I mean, they did, because there was the logo that went along with the slogan. And I've noticed, like, for some of the local organizations, like the Rhode Island Commerce, they've salvaged the logo part of it. So it was a square
yeah.
with a sail, an image or silhouette of a sail in it. And
That's supposed to be a sail. I didn't even really.
image
yeah,
itself
that's,
is not-
that's a sail. Yeah,
The
'cause
colors are so.
It's not horrible.
Well, if you've seen what Commerce RI does with it, it's all blue. It's not the yellow.
That's what I was going
red,
to say.
and
We're
red.
in Ocean State. And what do you think of when you think of the ocean?
Water, blue. Yeah.
Right.
Our license plates are blue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Like
The blue wave. So yeah, this just missed on so many so many different levels.
So what's the lesson to be learned here on that one?
Lesson to be learned is, like we've talked about with some of these other ones, is understand your audience, right? And if you understand the culture of Rhode Island and you understand the history of Rhode Island, you're never going to come up with Cooler and Warmer, because that has nothing to do with what we're about. Things like Biggest Little State, Fun Size, even Discover Beautiful Rhode Island. I mean, the fact that we're a small state, but we've got ocean and beaches on one end, and we've got these beautiful hiking trails in the woods on the other. I mean, it's a significant, demographic change in a very small space. So I think any of those, Biggest Little State, Discover Beautiful Rhode Island, Fun Size, I think they all hit on something that's unique
About Rhode
Rhode Island. And if you're going to brand something, find that thing that's unique.
Yeah.
And we take great pride in being the smallest state, but
And like you said, Rhode Island is fiercely loyal to their state,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We joked many times, as a native Rhode Islander, it's hard to leave Rhode Island because it's something that's inside of you.
Right.
It's hard to explain
Right.
that up to
I'm
somebody
not a
from the outside.
native, but I would never leave at this point.
The thing is, the old joke is if you've been here longer than 10 years, you're pretty much a native at that point. Once you start talking about places by the way where they used to be, oh look, that's where the old Bennies used to be.
right, right, which
Yeah,
wasn't that long ago.
No.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the cooler warmer thing, now this goes back to that. One of the local bands in this area, Steve something in the I can't remember.
Steve Smith and the Nakeds.
They redid the biggest little state in the union jingle
Oh yeah.
with the Benny's Choir. You got to look it
wow.
up. It was really good, actually. And they came back in response to that cold, cooler, warmer thing.
Okay.
So if you,
All right.
I'll get the link for it. We'll put it in the podcast notes. So it's
All right.
Yeah.
anyway. So
Good.
we're on to number 6. Last but not least.
All
What do you
right.
got for us, Alicia?
So this is a campaign that Timothy. Let me find it here. So they're not local; they're in Canada now. But they did a social media campaign. It was Timothy's, which is a coffee chain.
So like Tim Hortons or just Timothy's itself?
Actually, let me check on that.
Yeah, I've never heard of Timothy's, but
Yeah,
anyway,
I haven't
so
either, that's why I was
they're a
asking.
coffee
Uh-oh.
chain.
Hold, please. We'll put this on hold
If
for
it
one
ain't
moment.
Dunkin' Donuts,
Yeah.
I never heard
Well,
of it.
yeah. Tim Hortons came into this area.
Was it Tim Hortons?
Well, Tim Hortons was
No,
they're
it was-
Canadian.
Yes, that's why I asked if it was
And
Tim
yeah, they were
Hortons.
here for a while, and I don't know if maybe they were just
No,
expanded
it's
too quickly.
Timothy's.
Okay,
And
Yeah.
I've
so it's
seen. Okay,
Timothy's.
if
We can go back
You
to the
know
Tim
what?
Hortons thing in a minute.
if
but,
you see this now, if you see The brand, it's K-Cups. They produce K-Cups.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right.
So they're not local, but they're available to buy here because I've seen Timothy's
Gotcha,
K-Cups.
gotcha.
And so they ran a social media campaign offering a free coupon in the mail if you liked them on social media, something along those lines. Basically what happened was that they had so much participation, they ran out of free K-Cups. Like they literally ran out of the free item that they were promising everybody, and they ran out pretty quickly. Then people were naturally they were ticked off. They didn't get their free item, and they started writing bad stuff on social media. And it took Timothy's 2 weeks to issue an apology, and the apology wasn't even redeemed, telling people that they would eventually get their free item that they were promised. It was basically just an apology. So big fail because they didn't really think out how this social media campaign was going to work. And so I guess the takeaway here is that you should always plan out for the best outcome and the worst possible outcome. So, and if you can't, you have to have a cutoff then, to the first 100,000 participants or something like that. But they literally just told everybody that they would get free K-Cups.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
they
a
ran out.
mistake.
let's say that honest mistake, we miscalculated, we ran out.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the biggest mistake. I think the way they responded
Yes.
to it. So what would you do differently, Alicia, if you were advising them?
So, I mean, I guess if you got to do it fast, you have to respond fast, especially in social media, because people expect instant answers. They expect real-time engagement. So if you see something going wrong, you need to do something about it, and you need to do
Immediately.
something fast. And then maybe they couldn't, I don't know what the internal workings were, but maybe they couldn't come back from, fulfilling that everybody gets something free offer. Maybe that was going to bankrupt them or something. But then try to be just very sincere and open about it, and hey, we made a mistake, but you know what? We're going to be launching this contest again. This time, make sure that you have ample supply and put a cap on it, and get people, ready for the next contest. Or
Could you offer something as a consolation, like here's
Yeah.
a 20% off coupon, or
yeah, something like that.
I mean, you're still going to have upset customers, but at least you're trying to, work with them and try to offer something.
But 2 weeks. I mean, if I was
Yeah, you
a
can't wait that long.
Timothy's consumer, I'd feel like I'd been ignored.
Yeah, you would think so.
So,
That's
yeah.
craziness. So the one we alluded to a few minutes ago was Tim Hortons, and they came into Rhode Island a few years ago, not thinking that they were going to have any problem going up against the big D.
The juggernaut of Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah.
And that's a marketing fail in itself too. We can talk about that for a split second here, but
Yeah. Well, same thing happened to Krispy Kreme.
Yeah,
they
same
came in and, this is a tough market. You
Yeah.
know, people are loyal to Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks.
Yes, and not even so much Starbucks as much as Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
Granted, you fall into either camp in this area, but primarily Dunkin' Donuts has got it on. What
Right.
was there? Dunkin' Donuts on every other street corner around here?
Yeah. Now, converse of that, I think where PVD Donuts and Need have found success is they found a niche market.
Yes, specialty
right?
type donuts. Yeah.
So they're sort of using the long tail effect of, well, we have a small audience, but extremely loyal audience, and
Yes,
we're going to
yes.
market right to them and produce for them. And they've done
They
very,
do well.
very well.
Now,
right?
would that scale to 50 stores in
no,
Rhode Island?
no,
Probably
it
not.
wouldn't, no.
It's not made to scale. It's made.
Because there's a certain exclusivity to it.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I mean, have you ever had like a donut
Oh,
from
yeah,
Need? And I mean, it's like a meal. You know,
I've had the PVD. I haven't had
Yeah.
Need, but I've had PVD
yeah,
donuts.
well, PVD, the same thing. I mean, and very exotic, donuts, and they're quite large, and they're for a very specific market. But you're right, it wouldn't scale up to 50 stores.
No. There's a few that do well. PVD, Need, Alley's Donuts.
Oh, I
Which
love
is
Alley's,
that's
yeah.
a staple. That's been around forever.
Those things are the type of things.
And
So-
here again is that exclusivity. They could easily open 6 locations, but do they? No.
because they know that waters down their brand, so to speak.
Right, and you have to go to where they are.
Another one I
Drive
think
down
of
there,
is
yeah.
another favorite place that I love to go to is down in Providence is Pastiche.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great little place. It's a
Good
little,
luck getting in.
It's a little tiny.
On Federal Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the only one,
Right.
and they know that. They know that people are going to come there and spend good money because it's not cheap there. Let's be honest.
Exclusivity.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we've hit on all the fails. So the major lesson learned is don't do what they did.
Basically, yes.
Well, I think there's a lot of lessons
No, I
here,
get it, I
you know,
get it.
that we've talked about. But
Sum it up in one sentence.
Don't do it.
There's some good takeaways, and here's the thing, because our audience, they're not Fortune 1000 companies. They're small businesses, but I think the lessons that you can learn from these large corporations are easy applicable to small business. So when you're doing your own marketing, keep some of these things in mind. Learn from their mistakes.
Yeah. Do your research.
Right? Know your audience.
Know your audience.
Don't offend people.
Don't offend people. Again, it goes back to do your research.
Right.
It seems simple, but sometimes we get so caught up in day to day. It's very easy to fall into that trap if you're not careful.
Right. And I would say, when you're coming up with concepts for marketing and that, do focus groups and make sure that the people that you're talking to represent more than just one single demographic. Don't have 8 white guys sitting in a room trying to decide whether or not this is a good ad that objectifies women. It's like, you might want to ask a female or two.
Well, yeah, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with gearing your advertising towards a certain demographic. Lowe's, for instance, has done a great job of gearing their advertising towards women. It's not a bad thing. It's not prejudice. It's they know that what they're trying to sell is an upscale type of stuff, and they know that the women are the ones that make the majority of the decisions when it comes to remodeling a house.
And they were smart. I know they hadn't always done this, but when they brought in major appliances as part of their offering, that was a really smart move.
And on the opposite side, Home Depot did just the opposite. They were aiming towards men, saying, want to buy a new tool. This is what the manly place to go get tools. The manly.
Where Lowe's has almost got more of a kind of a department store feel now.
Yeah, exactly.
In regards to their offerings for kitchen and bathroom remodeling.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you go into Home Depot and look at their appliance section, it looks like a guy put it together. Let's be honest. No offense, but it's what it is. Is they got a box with,
we're going to get a cease and desist letter. I know it. I just know it.
I won't tell anybody that I worked for both of them. Anyway, with that, I think we are done for the day on this podcast. We can stick a fork in it. It's done, so to speak.
All right.
And with that, we'll see you next podcast.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today. And as always, you can find the back episodes of our podcast on Apple Podcasts. And you can also find us on our YouTube channel. Both of them are the Marketing Essentials Team.
You can find us on the web at marketingessentialsteam.com. And if you subscribe through our website, you'll receive a weekly email and letting you know when each episode has been published. Also, you'll receive a link to subscriber-only content.
You can also find us on Facebook in our private Facebook group. Just search Little Rhody Marketing Support Group. It's a great place for other marketing professionals and business owners where we can share marketing advice, challenges, and general trends. Hope to see you there.